Well, a very good morning and a very warm welcome to our Sunday Scrum today. And I'm so excited to say that next week we start a brand new series in the book of Isaiah. It's going to be amazing. But right now we're going to come and finish off our little mini series called Let's Talk. And today we're going to talk about serving. And so I imagine there are some folk out there that are a little bit excited, and there are some folk that are not so excited about this. And so those folk who are excited are busy jabbing the person, their husband next to them, and saying, "Oh, this one's for you." And there are fellowship group leaders that are so excited because there are some people in their groups that have never lifted a finger to wash a dish or take a cup through. And today, hopefully the penny's going to drop for them. And of course, there are those others who are not so excited about this because serving, well, it's not really their thing. And so this reminds me of a series on Disney Plus, a series part of the Star Wars, thing called Mandalorian, and it's about these bounty hunters that live by a specific code, and they've got this quirky thing that when they come and express a value in a call to action, they come and they say, "This is the way," and so it's often beautiful as a call to action to do something good or noble or big or right. And they come and they say, "This is the way." And so the point I want to come and make is, regardless of how we feel, excited or not so excited about this, whether we feel this is our thing or not our thing, this is in fact the way. This is the way of Jesus, of the church, of the apostles, of what it means to be a Christian. And so when we come and we define what it is to come and serve, can I suggest this, that to serve is at cost to oneself to prioritize the needs and the well-being of others. That there is a cost involved where we come and we put others above ourselves. We prioritize their needs above our own. And that this is the definition of true biblical service that we're called to. And no wonder it's not some of our things. In fact, it shouldn't be any of our things, because inherently we're selfish and we want to be self-protecting. And so it doesn't come naturally. I don't think it does. And the reason is because there is a cost. I think it's in 1 Samuel 24:24, where David is given a sacrifice and he refuses to sacrifice it because it was a gift to him. And he says, "How can I come and give a sacrifice to the Lord that didn't cost me anything?" And I think this is something of a call that we have to come and embrace, that there is a cost associated with serving that we see modeled throughout Scripture in the life of Jesus, and within the early church and the apostles and the great men of faith, that there is a cost associated with serving that puts a value on what we do, that it's not something small and simple, but it's actually something big and powerful and dynamic. And of course, when we come and we begin to look at it, we see that this is the way of Jesus. And so if I had to come and I ask you, what would you do if you had 24 hours left to live? What would you do with that time? And so I imagine some of you would probably go and eat as much, bacon and gammon as you could, because you're not quite sure if there's going to be pork in heaven. And maybe some of you would go and clean and tidy up your cupboard, maybe make sure that it looks good for those who are going to come and tidy out, and you just want to make sure everything's in order there. Maybe some of you are going to go do some last minute confessional just to kind of smooth over the way on the way up, or maybe most of you would come and spend a bit of time with your loved ones. But you know what Jesus did? 24 hours before he was about to die, he knew he was going to die. And you know what he went and did? He went and he washed a whole bunch of stinky, dirty feet. And these weren't feet that were locked up in comfy shoes that walked around perfectly manicured lawns and paved roads. These were sandaled feet that trod around in dirty, dusty desert lands, and these feet had bunions and blisters on, and they had cracks in them, and the dirt was embedded deep in there. And Jesus comes and he doesn't just wash one foot, he washes many of these feet. And we see that he comes and he epitomizes someone that comes and serves others. In fact, in Matthew chapter 20, verse 28, it says there, "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." And this is an incredible statement, an incredible truth, because if we know who Jesus is, the Son of Man, he's the High King of heaven, but at the same time, he's also a suffering servant. It just does not make sense. And yet, as we come and we look at his life, he comes and he washes feet. We see he feeds the hungry. We see that he comes and he heals the sick. He comes and he delivers the demon oppressed. He comes and defends the weak. He loves sinners. He gives dignity to the marginalized. He welcomes in those who have been rejected. And ultimately, he even comes and dies on the cross for us in the most radical act of sacrificial love. He comes and serves us with his life. And so when we come and we ask, what was the cost of that? He had nothing left at the end of it. He is the epitome of servant-heartedness. And so that scripture, Matthew 20:28, it goes on, it says, "For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." This is the way. This is the way of Jesus. But this is also the way of the Apostle Paul. In 1 Corinthians 11 verse 1, it says there, he says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." And so Paul comes and he serves others with the gospel at great cost to himself. And he comes and he lists some of the things that have happened to him. 5 times he's been lashed, 40 times less one by the Jews. 3 times he's been beaten by rods. Once he's been stoned. 3 times he's been shipwrecked. And at one point he spent a day and a night floating through the sea. There's a cost associated with going and doing the work of the gospel that Paul happily embraced and said, "I'll do it." It was on one of these shipwrecks that I want to come and just spend a minute and talk through, and it's actually in Acts chapter 27. He's been arrested. He's on his way to Rome, and it's late in the season, and so they shouldn't actually be sailing at this time. They should actually be sticking in a harbor to see the winter out, but they're in a rush, and so the Roman centurion actually says, "No, we've got to make a plan. We've got to go," and so they hop on a boat, and next thing a storm comes. And the storm rages for 2 weeks. It's going berserk. And so the sailors, the passengers on the boat, they start to strap the boat because they're scared it's going to fall apart. They start chucking all the cargo overboard. Eventually, they're chucking the ship's tackle over the board, just desperate that they might just survive the storm. And then there is a series of remarkable things that happen in the life of Paul that I want to come and I want to point out. And so in chapter 27, Acts 27, verse 23, there's a remarkable moment where Paul encounters an angel of the Lord who comes and assures him and says, "None are going to be lost. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And so this is a remarkable thing. In verse 31, Paul comes and although he's a prisoner, despite being a prisoner, he discerns that the sailors are about to jump ship in the dinghy and sail for shore. And if they did that, everyone's going to die because no one's going to be there to come and manage the ship. And so he comes and he speaks to the centurion, and the centurion listens to him, and they cut the ropes and the dinghies float off, and everyone's staying on the boat. And to me, this is a remarkable moment of strategic leadership from Paul. Despite the fact that he's a prisoner, he steps up there. Verse 34, we see that this growing confidence that Paul has raises to a point where everyone is despairing, and he comes and he begins to exhort them, encourage them, and make sure that they're eating. And he becomes something of the coach and the cheerleader of that moment, coming and saying, "Come, we can do this. None of us are going to be lost." And so it's an incredible turnaround that we're seeing. And so this is remarkable. More than that, what happens is that in a situation like this, when a ship is about to run aground and there are prisoners on board, it was standard protocol for the Roman centurion to kill all the prisoners. And actually Paul comes and he pleads the case for him and all the other prisoners. And remarkably, the centurion goes against protocol, and he stays, and he says, okay, he's going to trust Paul in this case, if they do go aground, that they're not all going to run away. And so there's another remarkable thing there. And then eventually they actually steer the boat towards the shore, and they're about to come and crash, and they do end up crashing on a reef. They don't make it to the beach, and everyone's hanging on bits of ship as they float in. And remarkably, every single one of the 276 people on board are spared, just as Paul came and said. And so none of them were lost. But perhaps the most remarkable thing for me is in Acts 28, the very next chapter, verse 3. And it comes and it says there, when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and put them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened on his hand. And of course, we know the story. He shook it off. He didn't die. And all the people there come and they think he's a god. And of course, this is remarkable. But this is not the most remarkable thing for me in all of these. In all of these accounts and all of these stories, you see the most remarkable thing for me. You see, seeing what Paul has done. He's come and he's really come and been the glue that's held this whole thing together. And through God and him and his leadership and exhortation, they've come ashore and every single one of them are alive. And I think that he is owed maybe a bit of glory, maybe a bit of basking in the glory, maybe a bit of boasting, maybe even sitting back and taking it easy. And yet, for me, the most remarkable thing is in that verse 3, Acts 28, and it says, when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and put them on the fire. You see, Paul didn't come and serve to live. He didn't see serving as a means to come and survive each day. In fact, he lived to serve. He didn't serve to live, he lived to serve. His whole life, his whole value system was around serving. That even after an incredible 2 weeks out at sea, where their lives were in danger and where he was something of the hero of that story, he doesn't come and sit back on his laurels and take it all in. He doesn't come and in a moment come and take in the comfort of, we've survived. But he gets up and he gathers sticks like a common man to come and to bless others. And so we see in the life of Paul that he is a man that comes and follows after Jesus, that he is a man that comes and serves. This is the way even of Paul. And we see that this is not just the way of Paul, but this is the way of the church. And so all the apostles, to great cost to themselves, come and serve. They serve those people around them. They serve the gospel. They serve Jesus. And each and every one of them, barring one, even though they did try, each and every one of them were martyred for their faith. There was a great cost associated with that. And so we see this value of service being worked through, that they lived to serve. And we see it throughout church history. We see it in the days of the Great Plague in Rome, where the Romans were chucking out their family lest they get sick. And Dionysius of Alexandria says this of the Christian brothers in comparison to the pagans who were just chucking their brothers out. He says, most of our brother Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty, never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another. Heedless of the danger, they took charge of the sick, attending to their every need and ministering to them in Christ. And with them departed this life serenely happy, for they were infected by others with the disease, drawing on themselves the sickness of their neighbors and cheerfully accepting their pains. And so, in other words, at great cost to themselves, they took on the disease of those very people they were serving. This is the epitome of servant-heartedness that we see in the early church. And we see it throughout church history. We see it with William Tyndale, who comes and translates the Bible into English. And we see that he is strangled and choked and burnt at the stake for the sake of coming and putting the Bible, serving people like you and I and giving us the Bible in English. We see it in the two Moravian missionaries that sold themselves into slavery so that they could take the gospel to slaves that otherwise would not receive the gospel. We see it in the life of St. Francis of Assisi, in Martin Luther, in William Wilberforce, in Florence Nightingale, in Hudson Taylor, in Corrie ten Boom, in Mother Teresa, in Martin Luther King, and many, 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 many thousands and thousands of others. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said this. He said, the church is the church only when it exists for others, not dominating, but helping and serving. It must tell men of every calling what it means to live for Christ, to exist for others. This is the way. This is the way of Jesus, of Paul, of the apostles, of the church, of our great fathers and mothers of the faith. And this is the way that we should come and step into and embrace. And yet, in the modern church, it's less and less this way. Richard Havelson says when the Greeks got the gospel, they turned it into a philosophy. When the Romans got it, they turned it into a government. When the Europeans got it, they turned it into a culture. And when the Americans got it, they turned it into a business. And so Christian business is built on Christian consumerism. It's built around Christian consumers. And these Christian consumers need to be kept happy. Leonard Sweet says, consumer Christianity was always taking but never giving, always feeding but never nourishing, and always using but never serving. This business type mentality, this consumer Christianity, it fosters a self-centered faith where we expect to be served instead of being the ones who are serving. It reminds me a little of the disciples. Before Jesus had died on the cross, they're arguing around who is the greatest. They're arguing and fighting about who's going to sit on the right seat of Jesus when he comes into his glory. They come in and they're asking Jesus very self-centered questions like, are you at this point going to come and restore the kingdom of Israel? And it reminds me of us coming and missing the point completely around the gospel and what we're called to. That when Paul comes and says, follow me as I follow Christ, that if we are Christ-like, we're going to come and serve at cost to ourselves, but we don't because we're too busy arguing or too busy fussing over different kinds of things, worried about our position or our status. And so we're going to watch a little clip from The Chosen. Many of you would know The Chosen, and this particular clip has a long drawn-up run-up to this moment where Jesus is healing hundreds of people from the morning all the way through to the night, and his disciples are actually sitting in the background there, and they're busy talking, playing games, and when we pick up this clip, it's kind of getting to the end of this point where they're now arguing, and they're arguing about inconsequential piffle, and it reminds me a little bit of us and the danger that we're in, that we can come and we can talk about serving but never be serving, that we can come and talk about the value of serving but leave it to the few, where we come and we get distracted in arguing and trivial and inconsequential things when there are others out there who are getting stuck in and getting on with the business. And so let's watch this clip, and as we watch it, I want you to just think around these two things. Why is serving such an important thing to God? And why is serving so difficult for so many of us? And when we finish watching this clip, we're going to put those questions up on the screen. I'm going to ask you to press pause, and I want to encourage you to discuss that in your groups for a good amount of time. This is an incredibly powerful clip that we've just watched, and as we come and we look at it, we see that while Jesus is busy getting stuck in and busy and his hands dirty, there are a bunch of disciples who are sitting around just talking, arguing, maybe even talking about serving, but not actually doing it. They all talk and there's no action. And I want to call us, those of us that might be sitting around the fire, those of us who might be sitting in our comfort, those of us who might be sitting back while others are getting stuck in, those of us who are all talk and no action, I want to call us to more. And so earlier I said that I've stolen the saying from The Mandalorian, this is the way, but actually the truth is The Mandalorian stole it from Jesus and from early Christianity, because in the early church, the church and Christianity was not known as Christianity, it was known as the way. And Christians weren't called Christians, they were called followers of the way. And they would come and they would mimic, they would copy Jesus and live as he lived. And so this is why Paul said, follow me as I follow Jesus. In fact, one translation says, mimic me as I mimic Jesus. Copy me as I copy Jesus. And so this is the call this is the call for all of us as believers, and that there is zero room for us to come and hide when it comes to serving. And so earlier in 2023, we had a prophetic word around a tree, that dead leaves were falling off this tree, and there's a temptation to come and pick these leaves up and to put them back on the tree, and there's a temptation for us to come and do that. And there is so many different interpretations of what this prophetic word could be, but I think there is an element of this where it's true for serving and for what's going on in the life of New Gen. And so I think some of the dead leaves that have fallen off in the life of New Gen is this temptation and this space that leans towards consumeristic Christianity. It's much, much, much harder in the current wineskin of how we operate to just sit back and just be happy for others to come and do it all. I think another leaf that has fallen off in lieu of this is this leaf of the few serving the many, that there is a call in this new dispensation, this new season that we're in, where it's the many who are called to come and to serve. And so I think these are some of the leaves that have fallen off, and I think we would be ill-advised to try and put these leaves back on. And so if you're looking into New Gen, if you're visiting, if you're maybe thinking this could be a church that I could come and be a part of, I want to say that this is not a church for oxygen thieves, not a church for leeches or bloodsuckers or freeloaders. You're not going to be comfortable here. You're going to be very, very uncomfortable. And so when your group is serving, are you the kind of person that or is actually on the golf course while you're serving? When your group has to come together and serve together on a Sunday morning and come and park cars or work in kids' church, are you one of those people that arrives late? Oh, I was running behind. Or when you're packing out chairs or when you're packing cups out, do you suddenly need the toilet, or do you suddenly have an urgent call that you need to take, or do you hang in the back with some of the other folk just chatting while some of the other people get on with it? If that's you, then New Gen is going to be an uncomfortable place for you. It's going to be a very, very uncomfortable place, because one of our core values that we come and fight for and express is this thing of servant-heartedness. Not because it's a good idea in my mind, but because we see it embodied in the life of Jesus and in all those who come after him. We see him come and epitomize it and model it, and we come and we follow after it. As Paul comes and says, follow me as I follow Christ, mimic me as I mimic Christ. We want to come and we want to mimic him. We want to be little Christ. We want to follow after him in his way. And so every other Sunday, you arrive at the refinery. And you arrive to someone who meets you in the parking lot, someone who greets you at the front door. Someone has swept and mopped the floors. Someone has put the seats out and made sure they're straight. There's someone looking after your kids upstairs. There's a band playing on stage. There's words on the screen. There's perfect sound coming through. There's hosts and preachers who are managing the moment. There's warm tea and coffee that's being served. And I want to come and I want to say that this does not happen in a vacuum. Every other Sunday, you arrive at someone's home and the house is tidy. There's someone welcoming you with a smile. There's tea and coffee ready. There's music that's being prepped. There are crafts that have been prepared for your kids. There's someone who's looking after your kids. And this doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are thousands of man hours represented in each of those moments. And more broadly in the life of the church, there's kids' church, there's Right, there's Route 67, there's music, projection, sound, international mission, local mission, salty Christianity here at home, Alpha, Sunday setup, healing room, prayer meetings, building maintenance. All of these represent thousands and thousands of volunteer hours that people come and put in to come and serve at cost to themselves, other people, and the well-being of others. And I want to come and I want to say, if you want to be a part of this church and a part of this community, then there is a call to come and to serve. This is the way of New Gen. And so if this is difficult or a problem for you, you're not going to be comfortable here. And at some point, you're probably going to get itchy feet and go look for a church somewhere else that you can fit in more comfortably. And to be honest, it might be worthwhile just doing that earlier rather than later. But if you think of that prophetic word, the leaves falling off, and there is the promise of a new season of new growth to come, I want to come and I want to say that God is priming something beautiful, something stunning within this church, within this community, that he is preparing her for. And I can't wait for that season. I'm seeing already the fruit of some of the preparation that God has been putting into the life of this church. I'm starting to see some of those things come through. And we want to be so well primed and positioned. We want to be Like those 5 virgins in the parable who've got oil in their lamps ready for whatever Jesus might come and bring or do at any moment. We want to be a church that is primed and ready, and there's a sense of imminent contribution and greatness that this church is called to. And we can't come and do that. We can't move into that new season without this value of serving being expressed, called forth and called forward. And so there are so many avenues and areas within the life of the church to get involved. I didn't even mention earlier, Taste and See, the social justice initiative in the life of the church. There's so many areas within that to get stuck in and to get involved. That is one of the greatest areas, in fact, within the life of this church, where at great cost you come and serve the well-being of others who desperately need it. My point is there's so many different areas within the life of this church that you can get stuck in and involved. And maybe there's even an area that doesn't yet exist that God's putting on your heart, that maybe He's calling forth from you. And if that is you, sit on it, pray about it, take it to your leader, and let's see if there's something in that. But there are existing things to get stuck into and involved in. And we want to come and say that this thing of serving is so important and so valuable to us that we're making it mandatory for everyone to serve. And so I don't know if you know this, but each and every fellowship group takes turns to come and to serve on a Sunday morning. And those serve areas are in the parking area, the kitchen, coming and helping with setup and welcoming, and then additionally with the kids' church upstairs. And so we've got a roster where it's currently 1 in 3 together Sundays. So once every 6 weeks, your group is on with other groups, and you come in and you serve. And this is a mandatory space where you come and you get stuck in. And when you do that, you start to model something of Christ. You start to connect in with a broader community. You get to be a part of something bigger than yourself. It's very, very powerful. And it's something that is so valuable and so important to us that we've made it mandatory. So if you're in a fellowship group, those are some of the moments that should be a highlight for you as a group, where you come together and you get to be a part of a moment like that. Now, I want to just park that, and I want to lean into something more specific now. And I want to take the heart of what I've said around serving, and I want to come and speak into a specific area within the life of the church. I want to talk about kids' church. And so we've got an incredible kids' church that operates and runs. And really, some of the newness of what God's brought us into in this season is one in which we're looking to come and partner with parents more and more in the raising of their kids, understanding that when parents and the church partner together, the ability to come and disciple our kids is exponentially raised. And so there is just been incredible over the last 2 to 3 years, incredible partnership and awareness around that, of coming and helping our parents to do their job better in terms of raising their kids, but also coming and putting things in their hands towards that end, but also ensuring that on a Sunday we're doing things that our parents can come and partner and link into. But part of the challenge is that over the last while, I don't know if it's out of COVID, I don't know if it's something of that consumeristic Christianity, but we've seen a massive drop-off in the volunteers within Children's Church. And I can't fathom this, I can't understand it. Not least of all because as a parent, I would want to be in that space with my kid. I would want to be up there, and I would want to be learning some of the things of how I can better disciple my kids. I'd want to be up there to come and to be a part of that space, because I get to come and invest intentionally in my kid. But more than that, even if you don't have kids, I think one of the most powerful, potent mission fields in the world today is kids ministry. And so everyone talks about the 1040 window, this missional space in the global map in the East, where there are just hundreds of millions of, maybe even billions of people who don't know Christ, and it's the 1040 window, latitude and longitude. And really, I want to come and I want to talk about the 414 window, 4 and 14. Between the ages of 4 and 14 is probably one of the greatest mission fields in the world. When kids are in that age, the International Bible Society has worked out statistically that it's at this age that 82% of children come to faith. 82% of people come to faith between the ages of 4 and 14. And so right now in your group, if you just press pause here and you said, who came to faith, between 0 and 18, most of the folk in your group will put their hands up. I almost guarantee you that. And it's this ages 4 to 14, which is most pivotal. And what we have actually in our kids' church is a missional field where you get to come and partner with God to see the gospel land in the hearts of kids. It's an incredible opportunity to come and be a part of that. But more than that, in the context of what we're called to, this is the way of Jesus, to come and serve. And he comes and he loves the little ones. We should be those who come and lean into that children's space. And so I just battle to understand how the kids area is an area that is battling for volunteers when it is probably the most beautiful, most potent missional space that we could be in. And so with this in mind, I'm wanting to call us to come and to be super intentional around not only us coming and leaning in with hearts that are freshly invigorated for serving, but I also want to come and call forth a whole army of volunteers to come and lean into the kids' church space. And so what we are going to do is we are going to come and we're going to split out our Sunday fellowship groups into 4 different teams. And so your Sunday fellowship group is going to be part of one of those 4 teams. And then those 4 teams are going to have one Sunday every 4 together Sundays. In other words, once every 2 months. And you're going to come and you're going to serve. So it used to be 1 in 3, it's now going to be 1 in 4. And you are going to come and you're going to serve on that together Sunday. And there are going to be people who are going to be involved in parking and kitchen. And there's going to be setup and welcoming. But what we want to ask, so that we can come and work through this well, and we can come and give Debs and her kids' church team people that she can work with over the long term, people that she can invest in, develop, help grow, nurture, that can come and begin to carry weight within that space. We want to come and give from each group 2 permanent volunteers. And by permanent, I mean this, is that when your group is on in those once every 4 together Sundays, once every 2 months, those 2 people are the same 2 people who always go upstairs and serve in kids' church, thereby creating consistency over the long term that can come and be a blessing to Debs and the kids that are up there. And so towards that end, I want to come and I want to say that we as an eldership believe in this so much, and we see the challenge and the deficit that is at play here, that we have decided we will lead once again from the front. And so the truth is that we only need 8 volunteers in children's church each and every week that we're up there. And that's the bare minimum that we need. We'll build from there. But we need 8 volunteers from each week going upstairs. So 8, 8, 8, and 8. So altogether, that's 32 volunteers that will come and form Debs' core team. Now, the point that I want to come and make is that we as an eldership believe this so much, and we see the deficit, and we want to come and lead from the front, that we're saying we will be the ones that will go up there, and we will be a part of that team that is serving up there. And so we are the first 8 or 9 that are going to be up there, that are serving up there. And so we only need another 24 to come and to say, yes, we're going to come and do this. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to finish this meeting. And I want you in your fellowship groups to actually talk about this. And I want to call forth from within your groups 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 people that are prepared to come and to serve in children's church as a permanent volunteer. And that permanent volunteering is only once every 2 months, but you're that person that can be relied upon. And that in this conversation that you're going to have in your fellowship group now, you guys talk about this and you land on who those people are going to be. And I want those people to come and join us as an eldership team as we come and we serve up there, and as we come and we take kids' church to new ground, to new levels, into a new season. And so I hope that makes sense. I want to ask you to come and to find something of a heart for serving as we see in Christ. This is his way. And more than that, let's find a heart for our kids to make sure our kids' church rocks. God bless you all.